Hi, so I said I'd do a short video for you about the literature review funnel. And so at this point, what a lot of you are doing is that you've narrowed down your research, you are reading lots of things and everything's coming at you. And a lot of people are saying to me, oh, I'm really sort of a bit frazzled now as to know, where do I go from here and what do I do? And thinking about your literature review in the form of a funnel is quite helpful because all of these different bits that you are now collecting are going to go into this funnel or into this literature review chapter. And you need to think about how am I going to organize it and how am I going to structure both the chapter and before I get to the chapter, even in terms of thinking about what literature it is I need to look at. So if we think about a literature funnel, the main message from it is that we are talking about big issues up here and then we narrow it down until we get to what our research question is here. So we always start with the bigger macro issue, if you like, and then narrow down to what our very specific question is going to be. So for me to show you how this works, let's look at an example. So let's say that what you're interested in is you're an event student and you're interested in what are the factors that affect a consumer's decision about whether to purchase festival tickets. So that's a very clear question that you have down here. You're looking at a specific festival and you want to know what are the key factors that affect the decision to purchase the ticket for here. But in order for you to be able to write your literature review, you need to go up broader to look at what the literature is saying. That will be helpful for you to answer this question. So you need to go right back up to the top, which is consumer behavior. So you need to be looking at consumer behavior to find out what does that literature say about how people make choices about purchasing their goods. So consumer behavior broadly, then what are the factors that affect the decision to purchase goods? And then looking more narrowly, well, is anybody writing about events in particular? Because maybe there are factors that particularly affect the decision to purchase event tickets or festival tickets. And then I will go down here and think about my question particularly. So you see here, I've taken a funnel approach. I've looked at the very broad issues up here and then narrowed it down, and my research question emerged then from that. So for some of you, you may already know what your research question is. You need to go back up the top to try and get you to that point in terms of thinking about where do I situate myself in the literature. And for others of you, you have a vague idea of what you want to look at, maybe more like down here than your research question. And so what you need to do then is start looking in the literature to help you to identify what the specific question is that you want. But the message is that we're talking about a funnel, so we're talking wide, and then we narrow it down to what we're interested in. Here's another example of somebody who might be interested in gender inequality. So you want to see what's been written broadly about gender inequality. That's going to be a huge, extensive literature. So then you're going to need to narrow it down to think about what about in sports and leisure, what's been written about gender inequality, and then bringing that down even more narrow, gender inequality in team sports, and that leads you to your gap or your question, which is specifically about one sport, hockey. So you see, again, what I've done is started very broadly and then narrowed it down. Now, when you're writing your literature review, what you want to do is to use this sort of a structure where you're going to start at the top and then bring the reader with you down to your more specific question. And in this way, using this approach, what you're doing really is you're building your literature review. You're starting with the broader literature and then you lead the reader to what the research question is. Your last paragraph in this chapter should identify the gap you're addressing and highlight your research focus. So what you're doing then from the literature that you're reading, so when you're back up here and you're reading about gender inequality in sports and leisure and more broadly, you pull out what are the themes and the headings that you want to use under each of these sections. So you might want to draw something like this for yourself and then start putting in the headings that you're going to use under each of these sections. And then that will be the structure of your literature review chapter. So hopefully you have found that helpful, and that approach will help you to think about what it is you need to read and what maybe isn't so relevant. Any questions, as always, drop me an email.